Well, good morning, folks. It is incredibly special to be back at Maranatha in Yorktown. It really is. This is just a great delight. Honestly, Lynn and I are just glad to be anywhere these days, and but to be here is just extremely, very, very special. It is, I don't even know where to begin. I really don't. I don't know what to say to express how excited we are about being here with you. We love Virginia. Yesterday we were driving this way, and as we were making our way, as we crossed that Virginia line, I thought once again, as I do every time I come into your state, how beautiful this area is, this state is, and we love it. It holds a special place in our heart. Because we had our honeymoon here, not too far from here in Williamsburg, just a few years ago. And when we got married 43 years ago, and I was only 7, and at the time, and so anyway. That number changes everywhere I go. Anyway, we love you, we love your church, and I think the reason why we were having a hard time remembering exactly how long ago, the very first time I was here, I had preached the Youth Harvest Rally, the Virginia Rally, one of those years, and I stayed over because it finishes on Saturday, and I stayed over on Sunday, and I met your pastor, and I met you on that Sunday morning for the very first time. And then Sunday night I preached somewhere else, and then I think on Monday I flew out and went back to wherever we had previously been. And so that was the first time we met, and then your pastor graciously invited me back for a revival meeting, and now to come back a second time is just very special. We're thrilled about being here. This last year has been quite a journey for us, and I don't want to dwell on it, but Lynn and I are, again, just so thankful the Lord is giving us a reboot. You ever had to reboot your computer and restart it, and maybe your phone? Reboot is what I want to do with my phone sometimes. I want to just boot it out the door. It just aggravates me sometimes. But, sometimes you have to turn it off and start it all over again. Well, that's what they did with me. I just a little over, just right at 5 months ago, I guess we're closing in on 6 months now, I had what's called a stem cell bone marrow transplant. Basically, they took out of me my stem cells, cleaned me out with chemotherapy, and put my own good stem cells back in me, and they said, you're starting life all over again. That's really, they said it. The nurses came in and sang not happy birthday, they sang happy transplant day to me, and gave me a cake and everything, and I didn't eat it because I didn't want to eat anything. I didn't feel very good. But the truth is, it was a restart. My immune system was shut down and started over again, and I just said, do I have to do junior high all over again? That's the only thing I don't want to do that one all over again. And so anyway, we're just so thankful the Lord is allowing me to be able to get back in the ministry. You are like meeting I'm on number 6 or 7, I think. I forget exactly. We've been kind of slowly getting back to our feet. Well, anyway, I didn't want to get into all that. I'm just very, very thankful to be here with you. You're very special friends, and we'll be here today and through Wednesday. Now, you are the Sunday school crowd. You folks come to everything, and I realize that whenever there's something special going on at Maranatha, you're probably always here. And so I don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but I do hope that you'll put it in your plans to be here for every service. Be back tonight, and then Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. And if you know me well enough to know, if you recall, I always say that the next service is the most important service of all. You say, why? Because it's the next service. I just want you to come to the next one, and then we'll worry about the following ones later on, okay? And so if you would, just plan to be back tonight. And you say, well, I may want to watch some basketball. Well, just record it and watch it afterwards. Your team won yesterday. What a classic game you had last night, you Cavalier fans. And so anyway, you can come. I hope that you'll plan to come. And if you don't, we're coming after you. So if you would, just plan to be here, all right? We'll look forward to seeing you here. This is my wife, Lynn, right here. I didn't point her out. She's right here on the third row, and we're again thrilled about being here with you. If we've not met, if we didn't meet the last time I was here, let's solve that before the day is out, and let's do what we can to get to know each other and get to know the opportunities of learning some things in the Scriptures. You know, a revival meeting is not it's not a spooky event. I had a little encounter with the secretary just a while ago. Where did she get off to? I asked about our mail, and she said, if you preach hard, you'll never get your mail. And I said, oh, okay, all right. Something along that line. Boy, now I'm really in trouble with her. I put her on the line in front of the whole church. I'm sorry. I'm just joking. She didn't say it quite like that. But anyway, where was I going with all that? Sometimes we do get the idea that the guy that's an evangelist, he comes in and he spits and stomps and slams and screams and throws things and so forth. I don't do that till about Tuesday, but no, I really don't. We won't be carrying on and so forth like that. A revival is not a spooky event. It's not a time in which a guy comes in and just really carries on and makes you feel about that tall. As he finds everything in the world wrong with you. So, you know, I think we've all attended services in which we think to ourselves, well, I'm just a failure. I guess, I just guess I better just keep trying to please God. Boy, I'm just such a loser. No. That's not the heartbeat of the Scriptures. That's not what the Lord wants us to meditate on. The truth is, I want this to be a time of awakening, to be a reawakened to some principles of our Christian life, to understand the importance of pleasing God with our life. Absolutely, but it's like ladies, it's like you dealing with clutter in your house. You go, your husband never sees the clutter, but you do. And you walk around and you start mumbling, my husband could live in a barn, and you start picking up all the clutter in the house and you start putting it in its place. Well, a revival is like getting some clutter cleaned up and putting everything back in its place like it needs to. Sometimes you don't even recognize that things have gotten out of order. It's like going to the doctor. And I hate to even bring that one up, but he says, did you know that your, fill in the blank, this area came back in your blood and you're off in this area and they start throwing terms at you. You go, what does that mean? It means we're gonna have to do this or that or whatever. You live life. And sometimes things just get out of whack. Men, it's like you crank up the engine of your car, your truck, and you go, something's off here. That engine's not running smooth. And you throw it in the garage and you either check it out or you get someone else to check it out to find out what's making this engine run so rough. It's just something has gotten into the system. Well, sometimes in our Christian life, things just get into our system. Spiritually speaking, we live our life, and a revival meeting is a time of focused study and looking at the Scriptures and say to ourselves, here's an area that needs to be adjusted. Here's an area that needs to be dealt with. And sometimes getting another voice in the pulpit who doesn't say anything you've not heard before, but just a different style of delivery and a different personality and a different text that you're looking at as a church family, it just assists. It helps us to get our focus and everything back in order. And that's the desire of my heart. I have been passionate about revival really for as long as I can recall. I used to love revivals in our church when I was a little boy. I used to love them. And little did I know what the Lord was getting me ready for to spend the rest of my life doing. And even as a youth pastor that I served in for over 20 years, I was always passionate about revival. And so my desire is that these days will be a real shot in the arm for all of us spiritually. And I want to draw our attention to something this morning that I hope will be timely for you. I really do. I want you to turn to the Gospel of John with me and turn to chapter 14. John chapter 14, if you would. And get that in front of you. And we're going to see something here that has been an encouragement to me. And it just seems like the Lord has recently laid it freshly upon my heart to share it with the Lord's people. It was important to the Lord Jesus. And if it was important to Him, it ought to be important to us. And He was addressing His disciples, His followers. And He was saying to them some things that He knew they were going to need. And He was addressing some things in their lives to prepare them for their ministry and for their continual following of Him. You know John 14. John 14, of course, it starts out in the early part of the chapter where He says, "Let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many mansions." And can you not see the pathos or hear the pathos probably in His voice when He says, "You know, if this wasn't so, you know I would have told you. Come close, guys. I'm going to go and prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again. I'm going to come back and get you." You see, it was probably dawning upon the disciples. He really is going to leave. He's going to leave us. What are we going to do? How are our needs going to be met? What are we supposed to do? He's the one who's been giving us direction. Of course, He goes on to say, "I'll take care of that. I'm going to move inside of you as the Holy Spirit, the Comforter. And I will continue to be with you and guide you and show you what to do. It's going to be fine." And then if you'll notice in verse 27, a verse that you probably know quite well. And I have no idea if you need it particular today, but I guarantee you will before life is over, maybe before this week is over. He says in verse 27, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." Now I'm a kid. I'm a kid at heart still, but I'm a guy who was a kid back in the in the 60s and 70s. Okay, now young people, that's the 1960s, and okay, not 18. I wonder if he knew Abraham Lincoln. No, not way back then. You know, the 60s and 70s were weird days. They powerfully affected the culture that we still are experiencing today. Really, music went through a gigantic change, a seismic change during that era of time. They call it the British invasion. You can fill in the blanks any way you want to on that one. There was language changes, some of which is hilarious today, some of which we still use. This is, you can almost find anything online. I found, honestly, some kind of a page of information of words and terms that were birthed out of the 60s and 70s. Crazy. The term "cool" came out of that era of time. We still use that. Say, "Hey man, that's cool. That's cool." It came out of that era, that time. You know, it's a good word. But the word "groovy" was also a word that was used. Isn't that hilarious? You know, I would never say, "Hey, that's groovy, man." You know what I mean? But back then, it was groovy. I mean, you could say it, and people enjoyed it. I mean, it was just like it was a part of, and colors and clothes and things were give me 5, man. It came out of that era of time, the 60s, and so it wasn't even a high five, and certainly wasn't a chest bump or anything that you see these days. It was just, hey man, give me some skin, just give me 5. It kind of grew out of that time. And there was one particular thing that you did, and I was reminded of it lately, just recently. Someone sent me a picture of my church youth group when I was a teenager. We were about to go on a Colorado ski trip, and we were all sitting outside around the church buses about to load up and so forth. And I was sitting down on the ground, and I had a friend sitting right next to me, and the look in his face was so 60s. And what he did was very common back then. He was all slouched over, and he had put up his hand like this. Peace, man. Peace, man. And it always helped if you could slouch a little bit when you did it, people have been talking about peace forever. The subject of peace has been something that politicians promise. They're going to help bring global peace. We've talked about family peace, societal peace, peace of mind. Those who work in the police force, their theme is to help preserve the peace. People talk about having peace with myself. We even say when someone passes away, may he rest in peace. People have been talking about peace forever. And of course, we all know, folks, and maybe honestly some people's testimony in this building could be that they sought peace through various means, and people still try to find it through their alcohol, through their drugs, through their immorality, through the gaining of possessions, through the accumulation of power and funds and popularity and so forth. And they're looking for satisfaction and peace, looking for something that will meet that void on the inside. And they always fall short. Now that's today true in society. It's always been true. Abraham and Sarah were all confused. They had been told by the Lord that they were going to have a baby, and they were trying to find some kind of guidance and some sense of peace that this thing would all work out, and so they got ahead of the Lord. And they brought in a handmaiden by the name of Hagar, trying to find a satisfaction in a birth of a child outside of Abraham and Sarah. Elijah lacked peace. He sat down underneath what's called a juniper tree, and he didn't want to live. I mean, he felt like his life was in danger, and he didn't have peace. He just had a sense of what a wasted life. And when the Lord said, "What are you doing?" he said, "I'm the only one left." No, you're not. But he didn't have any peace. I love the story of Ruth. Don't you love the book of Ruth? It's just an incredible book. And one of the most interesting aspects of the story of Ruth is Naomi, who loses her peace. Well, she lost her husband and she lost her 2 sons. That alone would just totally make a life in a state of upheaval. I get that, but when she leaves where she had gone to come back to Bethlehem, when she comes back, they're looking at her. She's been gone for 10 years, and people in the neighborhood are looking and they're saying, "Is this Naomi?" Now, I don't know what a lady feels about things, but I don't think that that's really what a lady would want to have said about them. She looks a little different. Is this Naomi? And she goes, "No, don't call me Naomi," which means pleasant one. Call me Mara. I'm a bitter person. I'm just without peace. I don't have any sense of mind. When you read it, if you know the rest of the story, you know what's going to happen. Ruth, her daughter-in-law, is going to give birth to a baby that's going to fall in the line of Christ. And you want to just say, "Naomi, don't lose your peace. It's about to get real good." But I don't know about you. We always look at our world and we say it can't be any less peaceful. What's Jesus talking about here to his disciples? Peace I leave with you. It's the old Greek word. It's that Jewish word, shalom. It's a very special term. It's a calmness. It's a sense of settledness. Come on. It's not hard to find something to worry about, is it? It's not hard to find something to get all tensed up and frantic about and disturbed. It's not hard to find something to get distressed about, because most of the time our peace of mind is based upon us being able to figure out how to settle things and to figure out why things are as they are. And our hope is based upon me being able to know why things are as they are. But when I don't know what's going on and I have to just trust in a God that I don't even see, I just have to trust in Him who's invisible, I often lose my peace. And maybe you do as well. And we worry. We worry about the future. We worry about how we're going to handle things from day to day. And so it was about a year ago. It's actually in February, a year ago. I was sitting in a doctor's office, and did that ever become the theme of my life this last year? I'm sitting there after all the tests, the biopsies, the blood test, everything that had been done, to try to figure out what was this pain that I was going through and what was this weakness I was suffering with. And my doctor said, what you're suffering with is multiple myeloma. I'd never heard those terms in my life. I didn't even know what it was. And he began to talk about what we were going to have to do. And when he stopped, I just said, Doctor, I've never heard that term before. Is that cancer? And he said, yes. I dropped my head because I had prayed, Lord, no cancer. Okay, Lord, no cancer. No, please, Lord, no cancer. And I was just told I had it. And the doctor said, you act like you don't believe me, or you act like this is really disturbing you. And I wanted to say, well, duh. I mean, maybe it's a common occurrence for you to talk about this to people, but yeah, I'm a little disappointed. I said, Doctor, I trust you. I just have been praying that I wouldn't have cancer, and I can't believe this. He said, we're going to deal with it. We're going to tackle it. And so for a year we did. And we're still going through the recovery, but we tackled it. Can I tell you, I had to find out some things about the peace of God. And I can't tell you the hours that were spent in time alone with the Lord. And if you're trying to find peace in cars and clothing and people and activity and vibrant health, if that's the only way you're going to have peace, there are going to be times in your life in which there's the rug pulled out from under you, and you're going to literally find yourself in a position where you either find out that God is all you need, or you're going to find out that you're going to be in a state of upheaval forever. And so Jesus looked at those He loved, men that He cared for, men He had invested time with, men that He trusted with the writing of Scriptures, the men that were going to take His gospel across the globe. And He said, now I'm leaving. But if you'll notice again, verse 27, peace I leave with you. I want you to notice several things. I want you to see the necessity of peace. The necessity of peace. That's the only reason why I think I'm speaking on this today, because the fact is, you're going to need peace. Jesus is saying, I love you men, And I trust you with, I have used you, and I have used you in my ministry, and I have sent you forth with the gospel, and I'm going to let you do things that you don't even know is going to happen yet, but I have invested my time with you these last 3+ years. And he said, but I'm going to tell you something, you're going to need peace. Peace I leave with you. Hey, do these words ever describe you? Panicked, frantic, anxious. How about this one? Stressed, fearful, troubled, worried, or even to the point we would even maybe classify as depressed. You know, you'll never hear this preacher, at least from this stage of my life onward, I will never say to somebody, oh, come on, you get over it. No. Depression is a serious issue. It's all throughout the scriptures of other men who've suffered with it. I mentioned a few people. Depression is, you can't say to somebody, oh, I had that once, you'll be fine. No. You know, when a person is suffering through a state of depression, it makes them lose sleep. It makes them not want to eat. It makes them irritable. It makes them just question almost everything. In many cases, they become a recluse and they don't even want to talk to anybody. They don't want to spend time. Sometimes they become so irritable that they don't get along with anybody. And I guess in extreme cases, some people even do more dangerous things to themselves. Depression is a very serious matter. Do any of those words describe you? Say, preacher, I've not gotten depressed, but I do know what it is to worry. I know what it is to be anxious and fretful, and I'm just concerned about things. Jesus says, I want to tell you something. I'm leaving you my peace. It's necessary. Now, don't forget who he's speaking to. Don't forget the people to whom he is addressing. By the way, notice the word you. Peace I leave with you. I'm not a Greek scholar, but I will tell you this, that word you is in the plural. You say, what does that mean? It means every individual there. He was not just talking to a handful. And there's a principle being taught here to us here that Jesus is saying, I'm leaving it for you. I'm leaving for everyone who's a follower of mine, who truly loves me. I'm leaving my peace. It's necessary. These are the best of men. They've seen Christ work. They've been committed to Him. They've already been used by Him. They're going to do much work for Him in the future, and they need peace. All right, if they need peace, then so will I. And so will you. So don't feel guilty. Peace is not given to some weak and puny Christian. Don't get the idea that Jesus is only saying, I'll leave peace for those of you who can't live life the way you're supposed to live it. No. He's saying it's going to be necessary. You know, I mean, when a person needs a drink of water, they don't feel guilty and say, man, I feel so puny. I need some water. No, it's necessary. And Jesus is saying peace is necessary. Sometimes it's because of things that we're suffering with regards to our past. We're bothered by things that we did in our past, things that were done to us in our past. If only I could have been born in some other family. Other people had normal families. Why did I get born? And they stay with the baggage written all over their face, and they battle with the emotion of their past. Or if only I hadn't gone to that school, or if only I hadn't dated that guy, if only I hadn't hung out with that gang of people, if only I hadn't gone to that particular school, if only I hadn't taken that job, if only I hadn't have gone into the military, if only I had have gone into the military rather than fill in the blank. And you can drag the past all into your future and live a life that's completely in turmoil and frantic, and sometimes it's your past that takes away your peace. Sometimes it's the present. It's today's burdens. It's getting slapped in the face with today's issues. Oh my, how am I going to handle this? What am I going to do? Oh man, I got so much to do and I don't have time to get it all done. Do you remember Martha? In Luke chapter 10, Jesus had to calm her down. He said, Martha, you are full of care about all kinds of things. And he says, you've lost your peace. Now, Martha's a good lady. She was just busy with so much stuff to where she rebukes Jesus. Would you make Mary get up and help me? You know? And he says, you've lost your peace because you're full of care. Sometimes it's the present demands of your life. You know, I say that on the Lord's Day, and most of the time, you wake up on Sunday, the Lord's Day, and I'm just so glad I don't have to go to work. And kid says, I'm glad I don't have to go to school. And guy says, I'm just so glad I don't have to do that much today. It's the Lord's Day. I love Sunday. Well, I do too. And so right now, you don't maybe feel that franticness. Well, you're going to need to remember this come tomorrow. Because today's burdens are going to be hanging over you if you're not careful. Sometimes it's the past. Sometimes it's the present. And help me out. Sometimes it is the... Yeah, you gotta get a preacher's outline going. You gotta stay in alliteration. I don't know why. There's no scripture on this. It's the past, it's the present, or it's the possibilities. Okay, you got to get this outline going, and I see that went over well. You're concerned about the possibilities of the future. You got to be concerned. You know, it's like, oh no, what if this person gets elected? What if they pass that law? What if you spend a lot of time watching news, you're going to get yourself so torn up and throwing pillows at the TV screen and getting on the phone and worried about everything and wanting to move to New Zealand or something because you're thinking everything is just caving in and I don't know what we're going to do. And the future becomes frightening. And I understand. I didn't know about my future. And you don't know about yours. You say, preacher, everything's going fine for me. I'm doing good. I'm happy for you. It just takes one phone call and your world changes. It just takes one car accident and your world comes to a screeching halt. It just takes one doctor's report and everything is altered. The necessity of peace. Jesus is saying here, you're going to need this. And if you don't have Christ peace, now hear me, it's going to affect your marriage. It'll affect your home. You won't be a joy to live with. It'll affect it'll affect any ministry that you're desiring to have with people. It'll affect the teaching of your children, the raising of your kids. If you don't have peace, you're going to be a harsh mother. You're going to be a difficult dad. If you don't have peace, you're not going to get along with people you work with. It's necessary. It is needful. And Jesus is saying what? Notice, peace I leave with you. It's here. It's here for you. You say, well, I don't feel peaceful. He's saying, I have left it with you. Sometimes we don't even know what we have. We some time back bought some new toothbrushes. You know, it's good to replace those from time to time. And so we had some new toothbrushes, and I was using it. I had used it for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, and obviously every day, and I was using that new toothbrush and so forth, and I was one morning brushing my teeth, and I was rinsing my mouth out with some water, and I was shaking my toothbrush in my hand at the same time, and it hit the side of the sink when I did, and all of a sudden my toothbrush started going, started vibrating. I looked at that thing and I thought, what is wrong? I had a vibrating toothbrush and didn't even know it. I hadn't been pushing that button on there. I didn't know. I said, Lynn, we got vibration. She goes, yeah, I know. I know. I didn't know. I've been using it the old-fashioned way. Didn't know what I had. You say, well, I don't feel peaceful. It's there for you. You don't seem to know what you have. The fact is, Jesus says, don't be afraid. I am divinely intervening and leaving for you lavish peace. Number one, the necessity of peace. Number two, the superiority of this peace. It is superior to anything and everything else you could find in any other place. Look at verse 27 again. Look at it. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Notice he didn't just say, I found some peace and I'm going to leave it with you. He says, I'm leaving you my peace. Okay, what's that mean? Jesus was saying, I'm leaving you the peace that you're going to see demonstrated when they arrest me and send me through these mock trials, both Jewish and Roman, and I'm going to be accused, I'm going to be reviled, I'm going to be spit upon, my beard's going to be plucked out. Now, he didn't say all that, but they're going to see it. He goes, you're going to see me abused, you're going to see me nailed to the capital punishment of the cross, and you'll never see me lose control. You'll never see me go into an anxiety attack. You'll never see me saying, what's going on here? My peace I leave with you. I'm going to tell you something, son. This is superior peace. This is a peace that goes beyond anything that anybody else could ever. I love football, and I enjoy football, and I enjoy watching it on just about every level. And sometimes, the greatest of quarterbacks, some of which I don't really care for personally, but the greatest of quarterbacks will be these guys that will stand back there in the pocket, and they got bodies flying all around them and threatening to harm them physically, and there are things being spit out by these vicious animals of men that are bouncing around and hammering away, and they just stand there very calmly and wait for the right moment to deliver the pass. Okay, that's a successful quarterback who seems to have that calmness in the pocket. Well, I'm going to tell you something. It goes way beyond that kind of calmness. Jesus says, I'm going to leave you my superior peace. In the book of Isaiah, you know this verse, Isaiah 26 and verse 3, the Bible says, thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. Now the word perfect and peace going together there, really, again, I'm just trying to help you get an understanding of the words. The word perfect and peace, it means a double whammy. In other words, the writer Isaiah was saying, thou wilt keep him in peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. That's the height of peace that we can have here. And when we get to heaven, we'll have the triple dose. Peace, 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 because it'll all be perfected at that time. But here on earth, we're not just given peace, we're given peace, peace. That will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee. What kind of peace is this? Well, it's a spiritual peace, because it's a peace knowing that everything is right between me and God. It's an emotional peace that gives that settled calm when everything is troublesome all around you. It's a mental peace because it's a contentment and a calming of the mind when the mind wants to run amok and go in every direction. It's a peace that is complete, that allows you to sing, it is well with my soul. You remember David said this, you know this verse probably, in Psalm 42 and verse 5, and he also repeats it in verse 11. He talks to himself. He says this, he says, why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you disquieted within me? Hope thou in God. And he goes on to talk about how that the Lord is the health of his countenance and is the help of his countenance, and he would receive the help of the Lord's countenance in his life. Now listen to what he's saying. He says, why are you cast down, O my soul? You know what he's doing? He's talking to himself. You ever talk to yourself? Someone said talking to yourself is a sign of old age. Well, then I've been old since I was about 4 years old. I mean, I've been talking to myself all my life. Well, the truth is, he's talking to himself. And he's telling his soul to stop going in the direction that he's going. It is, as one man described it, it is his spirit, the spirit within him, speaking to the soul within him, stop being depressed. Stop being disquieted. Stop being distressed in life. Stop living without peace. In other words, here's what one man said, Martin Lloyd-Jones said, we need to stop listening to ourselves and start talking to ourselves. Because if you listen to yourself, you'll say, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. Of course you don't. Many times you don't know what you're going to do. Instead of listening to yourself and getting frantic, start talking to yourself and say, don't be cast down, O my soul, and don't be disquieted. Hope in God, who will give the health to your countenance and is the help of your countenance. Okay. It is superior because of what it is. It is completely inner calmness, peace. It is superior because of who gives it. Jesus, the one who had complete peace. I repeat, there was no anxiety attack when he was opposed by the authorities of his day, and when he was beaten and he was falsely accused, lied about. He was at peace. Okay, the necessity of peace, the superiority of peace. Number 3, the accessibility of this peace. How do we get it? It's already there. It's a gift. It's there. You say, but I don't feel peaceful. Then tell your feelings to take a hike because it's there. It's a gift. Do you remember in Ephesians 6 where the Lord talks about the armor of the warrior? And he says, put on the breastplate of righteousness and the belt of truth. And he talks about the various parts of the armor. You remember where he says, and take up the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. Okay, now follow me. There are some things that you wear. There are other elements of the armor that when needed, you pick it up and say, wait a minute, I am going to fight against the enemy. You pick it up. In other words, you don't have to have it all the time as far as being able to fight. I mean, it's available and you pick it up when needed. Okay. The gift of peace is available when it's needed, you pick it up. You say, well, I'm not following you. You remind yourself of the truth of Scriptures. Jesus promised His peace. My peace I leave with you. It's there. So recognize it and tell yourself there's no reason to let life weary you or to let people disappoint you or to even allow yourself to disappoint yourself because, again, lavish peace, perfect peace, is available and it's accessible at any time. That's why Jesus says again at the end of verse 27, so don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Now, why did he say that? Because there are times in which these guys were going to be afraid, and he says, don't let your heart be troubled. He'd already said it once. He's repeating it for emphasis, and I think that's encouraging. You don't have a need this morning. Stay with me. You don't have a need this morning that the Lord does not answer by simply saying, I leave you everything that you need to meet those needs. I give you my peace. Don't be afraid. So we see the necessity of it. We see the superiority of it. It's His. We see the accessibility of it. It's a gift. Can I just close with one more thing? And that is the ministry of peace. The ministry of it. Now, why did Jesus leave it with these guys? Because they were going to need it personally, and then they were going to also need it to help others to understand the availability of it. Would you go to chapter 20 with me? John 20, and Jesus continues to emphasize this. In John 20, Jesus goes on to say some things about, and by the way, this is after Jesus rose from the dead. He's already been crucified, and he's been resurrected from the dead. Look at chapter 20. Let's start in verse 19. It says, then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, meaning they were locked, where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Jesus and stood in the midst and said unto them, peace be unto you. Well, I don't know about you, but I mean, if you're standing around and you're a little trembly because of the fear of someone breaking in and could arrest you and take you to prison, and all of a sudden, here's somebody in your presence that had not been there before, I would want them to say immediately, everything's fine. Peace. Everything's fine. Shalom. It's me. Peace be unto you. That's the first words out of his mouth. All right, keep reading. Look at verse 20. And when he had so said, he showed unto them his hands and his side. Then were the disciples glad when they saw the Lord. Then said Jesus to them again, Peace be unto you. As my Father hath sent me, even so send I you. Now don't miss what he's saying. He's saying, my Father sent me. But before he even said that, he says, peace. Peace to be to you now. Peace. Don't be afraid. Be calm. Everything's fine. Just like the Father sent me to you, even so I'm sending you out with this message. What message? Well, the message of peace. What peace? The peace that a person can have with God. The ministry of peace to help others recognize everything you're looking for is found in Jesus Christ. You're trying to find peace in your money. You're trying to find peace in your possessions. You're trying to find peace in your acceleration at this job. You're trying to find peace in your family. You're trying to find peace in your vehicles. You're trying to find peace in all these other things. The world offers a cheap version of peace. You know what? Honestly, it is. It's cheap. It's counterfeit. It's short term. We're only at peace. My team won. Yes. Okay. Or they could lose the next one. Don't get mad at me, but it could happen. Any team that you pull for, they can break your heart, and most of the time they do. And we just, and everything is like cotton candy, sweet for a while, and then it's gone. It's counterfeit. It's cheap. It's short term. And Jesus says, you need to go out and tell others what I've told you, and that is, this is an eternal peace. This is a peace that's real. This is a peace that they've been looking for. I read so many books this last year. I mean, I just read daily. I read constantly. I was just constantly getting books. Books in my library I haven't had a chance to get to, and I just devoured all these books and so forth. And for variation, I would sometimes read a biography about somebody's life. You get illustrations and you get things. And I read a biography. I checked out a book out of the library about a guy that some of you would remember. His nickname was the King of Cool, Steve McQueen. At one time, Steve McQueen was the most wealthy man in all of Hollywood. And yet Steve McQueen was, you read his biographies, any of them, there's several out there. You read any of them, you know what you'll find out? He was miserable. He chased women, and I can't even begin to tell you how wicked his immorality was. It was horrible. He was high on drugs constantly. And he was constantly fearful that somebody was going to get more attention than him in Hollywood. He always made sure that any banner announcing the future movie that he was in, his name had to be in bigger print and above everybody else's name. He had to make sure, I've got to be the ultimate. He was miserable. And then he got cancer. Got cancer at the age of 50. Started trying to find answers, look for medical help and everything. And a preacher went to see him, sat down with him, opened a Bible, and presented Jesus Christ to Steve McQueen. And Steve McQueen said, that's what I'm looking for. And he accepted Christ. As far as I know, based on what I read, we'll see him in heaven. And soon thereafter, he died. What a wasted life. He spent all of his life trying to find peace and never could find it until the very end, when he reached the end of his life and the end of himself. Okay, the ministry of peace We've given peace to children. Mothers, have you not held a little kid up close to you when they skinned their knee or their elbow? Sure you have. Probably did the same to your husband too. I mean, we need peace. We need mama's care. And you've done it to your grandkids. I sure have. And that's very special. I don't know about your grandkids, but mine are basically perfect. And I know what it is to give loving care and peace. And so would you forgive me one more time, at least for right now, to say to you that in this last year of my life, there were several verses that became anchors to my life. And this was one of them. John 14:27, Jesus said, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you." Not as the world gives. That's a shallow, cheap, counterfeit peace. "Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." I don't know if you're full of frantic worry this morning or if it's going to happen sometime this week. I don't know. But don't forget what Jesus said. You're going to need this, and I'm leaving it with you. Let it be an anchor to your life as well.